I'm Bernie Kirrane, Arts and Culture Officer with Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, and on behalf of the Council I'd like to welcome you all to the beautiful Strule Arts Centre here overlooking the River Strule in the centre of Omagh. The centre was opened in 2006 and includes the lecture theatre, the recording studio, dance studio, the auditorium, art studio, the cafe, rooftop museum and of course Strule Gallery, where we are today. I, as Art and Culture Officer with the Council, I coordinate monthly exhibitions here in Strule Gallery, covering a wide range of art forms and solo and group exhibitions throughout the year. We are delighted, everyone here at Strule Arts Centre, to be hosting this current exhibition, Tribes and Tribulations by Helen Merrigan Colfer, curated by Noelle McAlinden. The feedback has been so positive and so enthusiastic so far, and deservedly so. So I'll just hand over now to the curator, Noelle McAlinden, to take you on a tour of the gallery. Thank you.
Welcome to Tribes and Tribulations, a solo exhibition by Helen Merrigan Colfer here at Strule Arts Centre in Omagh. We're absolutely thrilled to be able to bring this exhibition to the Strule Arts Centre, and it comprises 30 sculptures by this award-winning artist and a monumental and very personal lockdown diary. I'm Noelle McAlinden and I'm the curator of this exhibition, and I'm thrilled to be taking it as part of a tour across the island of Ireland. We began in the Flowerfield Arts Centre in Portstewart, then the Island Arts Centre in Lisburn, and here at Strule Arts Centre before it moves on to the Alley Theatre in Strabane. So these are just some of the sculptures, earlier sculptures that Helen has made, and how she has a very unique style. You can agree that the pieces that she has are very, very strong. They are powerful both in the context that they represent and the narrative, but also in how they are actually created. All of them have steel armatures and they're modelled using a type of resin and powder clay. And then you can see the treatment on the surface of the pieces is actually completed by a range of materials and media and processes involving paint, gold leaf, acrylic, and in some cases oil paint. All of the pieces are in some way autobiographical. They're full of emotion and spirit and resilience, as well as, I suppose, it's a type of empathy for the world around us. This piece, the Remembrance Dress, is a very powerful piece. Like all of the characters and all of those represented, they stand very firmly, very strong, and there's a certain stance to Helen's work. And it's only recently, even though I know this work so well, that I realised that actually when you look very, very closely, you can see the words "Forget Me Not." A very rich palette, almost regal in the context that it's presented, and also when you look at how the hands are placed very firmly, and you notice then that the arms are not there. This piece, again, A Dress for Flying, was created in 2017, and the idea of elevating and just rising above the trials and tribulations that we might find ourselves in. We deliberately chose the title Tribes and Tribulations, and it's really a documentation of the artist's journey from childhood through to adulthood and the tribes that we choose to connect with along the way. As you can see, there's some text to accompany some of the pieces, and this text has come later, and there are a series of poems that Helen has actually created which are part and parcel of the whole creative process. And these have come much later when she has reflected on our pieces with a huge degree of confidence. This piece here, the Noughts and Crosses dress, again, it's a celebration of femininity. It also acknowledges and documents times in our lives when we've had to deal with surgery or challenges, numbers, dates and weights.
Our lives are counted. Experiences gained, tribulations survived. Each and all, like precious gems stitched together, as were the blankets of old. Sifting through, finding those that are precious, shining them up, for they are like precious jewels.
Again, this reference to strong feminine energy, a reference here to fertility. This one here is called My Little Blueberry. Again, standing proudly with a hairstyle, a stance, and shoes as well that are really, really quite unique. As you can see, as you look around all of the pieces, there are certain pieces that stand quite independently. And this piece here, Inside I'm Drowning, is one of a series of 3 pieces, 2 of which are currently with the Arts Council collection in Belfast. Helen tends to work in a series of 3s and 4s, and it gives her an opportunity to extend her own boundaries and explore the potential of the materials and the media and the process that she's using, and done it in such a really, really creative way. This piece is very, very poignant, and it shows how the artist has developed in looking at sometimes colour doesn't necessarily represent the emotion that she wants to use. These pieces here are deliberately pale in palette, and yet the energy evoked from both the marks and the expressions are very, very powerful. And again, this poem that she has created as well to complement the work is equally very powerful. Again, a reference to her earlier work in 2018. Again, constructed with resin and steel armatures with enamels and a granite base. And then you have references there to 23 karat gold leaf as well. And it's very, very powerful to see how Helen's work in the round actually encompasses a whole series of different challenges that often when it comes to actually getting them cast in bronze, quite simply is involved in breaking new ground as an artist. The pieces along the wall are the results from a series of notes initially done during lockdown when Helen's mother-in-law Noelle came to stay with herself and Paul. And on a daily basis, over those 3.5 months, Helen would have cooked a meal and added a little note just to help make Noelle feel welcome. And the feedback that she got from her mother-in-law, both for the nourishment that she received through the food that she prepared, but also the little notes and the storytelling really lifted her spirits. And it's something that is both very, very cathartic, both for Helen and also very healing. But most of all, this lockdown diary of sorts is a memoir. It's almost like a love letter between a daughter-in-law, her mother-in-law, and her husband during lockdown. So in effect, it's a piece of social history, very powerful piece. So in the conversation that Helen and I would have had over lockdown, we talked about the importance of these relationships and again our tribe and family and connections. And it was so obvious that Noelle's response to this little exercise and all of these little notes were very, very positive. And eventually then we talked about adding some of Helen's own drawings and illustrations. And you can see then when we look at the pieces here, this diary has taken on a life of its own. The illustrations, the storytelling, the wit, the humour, but most of all the compassion, celebrates a life well lived, with 3 people living in their own bubble at home at Curated. This is a portrait of Paul and Noelle, his mother, and Paul and Noelle during lockdown. And as you can see, we came up with this idea that if we could enlarge these, it meant that we could actually enjoy these as part of the exhibition. So this lockdown diary is here, larger than life, printed on foam board so that you could actually enjoy the scale of work and read with great ease. And it's interesting to see that Helen's portrait of herself represents her much older, I suppose, and much more anxious. And this was around the time, not that long after she lost her own mother. So it was, I suppose, a period of reflection, a period of compassion, and I suppose what really the lockdown diary documents is Helen coming home to herself in the beautiful relationship with her mother-in-law and her husband. Helen then presented a diary then to Noelle, a dedicated diary, all of which were presented in these little binders, and also to Paul's brothers and family. And sadly, Noelle passed away just about 2 months ago. But it's a beautiful celebration of someone who was loved and nourished and nurtured, and it's a gorgeous piece of social history. As we see here, these sculptures here are now in bronze. And again, 2018, this idea to be or not to be, this idea of childhood sabotage, how within us, the child that we have, sometimes we need to continue to nurture that child. And here again, the idea about how we need to rewrite the script that we tell ourselves and tell each other. And I suppose Helen, as a former art and design teacher, would have witnessed firsthand children who may have been told that they weren't good enough. And any of us that have been in the education process know well how it is important to encourage and certainly provide a culture of compassion for children and young people. And I suppose the adults within us, we have to rewrite our own script, and we have to look at how we speak to ourselves and how we encourage each other rather than put each other down. And I suppose these two pieces represent that dialogue, this idea of playing on words, minimise the references to, putting on a brave face. But for me, these pieces are not just compassionate representations of being kind and compassionate towards the child within, but also how she has almost defied gravity in how she's created these pieces, how they perch and balance precariously on these pieces of cheese. And all together they form a very, very strong narrative, a very powerful dialogue about the importance of an altered state. And again, she's written the piece associated with the two pieces of sculpture. Adorning mask and costume, we become masters of illusion, covers never matching content, negative threads being spun on repeat. We shut out the light and exist in the dark. We have altered our natural state. We become for those around us, never to discover who we were really meant to be, a potential lost. We live in a house of words, becoming that which we tell ourselves. We become self-saboteurs, a self-fulfilling prophecy. And again, it's a very, very powerful message for those involved in education, those involved in any walk of life. Again, whether adult or child, the narrative we tell ourselves will actually, in some cases, define us. You can see here that there's a great interest in nature and animal life. And again, this idea of, we become almost like the company we keep. This idea of morphing into characters. And Helen has a great love of nature. Again, this idea of an illusion and wearing masks. And this is something that she's been doing even, long before lockdown, but it's something that has come to the fore. And then, of course, these pieces, again, as part of the earlier series, very, very dramatic in the context of the stance that they have. Also in terms of the palette that Helen has used, references to fertility, the desire for motherhood, references to the natural world. Very, very powerful. And beautifully executed. Again, a reference to some of the pages of the lockdown diary. And I'm going to take you down to some of the earlier work that Helen did. While Helen had a very successful career as an art design teacher, she made a decision to give up her job as an art design teacher and then decided to concentrate on her own artwork. And these pieces here are some of the earlier pieces where she began to explore just playing and making art for art's sake for herself after a period of illness. The pieces are very strong, they're very powerful. And again, using the materials and the media and the process in a very, very creative way and incorporating some of nature, both in the structure of the piece and also in the embellishment and the printing. So you can see the indentations here, some coming from some of the rock formations and some of the landscape from which and from where she lived and lives. These pieces are particularly interesting. This idea of we are all coming from these tiny little seeds and little pods that are expelled into the universe. Very, very powerful. And I can't help but think what these pieces would look like if they were pieces of public art. Very, very powerful. And again, this sense of connection connecting to each other and being part of this tribe. Some of us spend years trying to find our tribe, those that we connect with, and I suppose at any one given period in time, we don't necessarily keep the same friends, the same connections, but it's important to feel connected to something. You can see a direct relationship between the horse's head that she made in the former piece and these pieces here, and there's something that's very much almost like an Alice in Wonderland theme, the idea of something that is very, very majestic, very regal, the idea of the colourful palette. It's almost like another landscape or moonscape here. And I can't help but think of this piece here, The Girl with the Hobby Horse, again, circa 2016. You almost expect the head to move. You expect to see sound. And the ornamentation is beautiful. The attention to detail on the surface decoration is really quite amazing. And when you look at the boots, the shoes and the stance again, there's a confidence and a steadfastness and a resilience that actually seems to have had the ability to stand your ground in the face of adversity. This piece really represents the idea of, I suppose, finding our tribe. It's called Tribe. It's a very, very strong piece. Again, I can imagine this as a piece of public art, either individually or collectively. And again, this reference to the landscape that we're from, the warp and the weft threads, the connection with nature. I know Helen has a huge affiliation with goats in terms of both their intelligence, their own resilience. They stand their ground, and there's something, their qualities that she really admires. Again, each of the characters have their own narrative. Their facial expressions, I just think, are stunning. How they're treated, the colours that are used, the paints, the background, the surface. And what really intrigues me is that even references to the hands without arms, you know that the goat has been held steadfast. You know that the lovers are connected by one hand. They're interlocking. And more recently, Helen has added on these faces, that are coming out of the surface of the garments that the figures are wearing. And it really is a recognition and a celebration of those that have gone before us and those that we've descended from. Again, the reference to the architectural type of landscape, costume, if you like, what we're wearing, very powerful. All of these structures have been created over steel armatures to ensure that they have a particular stance and a particular, I suppose, not just volume, but that they occupy a space in a very steadfast way. And while you look at them from the front, again, very, very strong. From the side or the back, there is so much to see and so much to appreciate. We've had students in earlier and they've really, really enjoyed looking at the work. And we've had quite a number of tours and just been amazed by the response to the work as well. And what has been really, really interesting is that artists across the island of Ireland have made the journey up to see this exhibition. People that haven't even met Helen before but have seen her work and appreciate her work. And it's a lovely testament for other artists, and particularly the artists exhibiting, to have that affirmation and that encouragement and endorsement. And it's interesting too, we've had a number of different artists across art forms who have come along to see the work and have been inspired by it as well. These pieces again, references to girls in blackbird canopy, girl with a bird's nest, this one here, in their midst. And again, this idea of being nourished by nature, the connection with nature, the whole idea of being encouraged to grow and develop, and almost again be enveloped by the environment that we keep ourselves within. But this idea of being nurtured and taking on some of the features of those that we become a part of. And again, a typical example of Helen working on 3 different characters but part of the same tribe. These pieces are very powerful and are as powerful because of their lack of colour, that they represent how the artist has continued to explore this narrative of what we tell ourselves or what we have been told as young people, and the child within all of us that is feeling vulnerable or in many ways disconnected, or someone who feels that they have been unappreciated or kept small. And again, it's about encouraging us all to change the narrative, to change the script, that we are good enough, that we are to be celebrated, and that our gifts are really, really important. We've had an amazing response with to some of these pieces, and a curiosity, which I think is healthy as well. And again, it's representing the male and female form, but also this idea, irrespective of gender, irrespective of age or stage in life, sometimes we carry with us pain of the past, challenges that we feel that we can never overcome and possibly do. And the reference here to the Velveteen Rabbit and Schrodinger's child is this reference to the dark and the light. Times in our lives when we maybe have felt isolated or disconnected, or times when we've chosen to retreat from it all. And I suppose the essence about this exhibition is really to encourage people to find their tribe. The tribe does exist, and those that have talents and skills that they want to share, it's good to be able to connect with those that appreciate them. All of the work is for sale in this exhibition, and we've been delighted and thrilled by the sales to date. And this piece is one of a series of temple series of Helen's later and most recent work. And this was created during 2021. And it's called Temple 5, The Secret. It's just been sold earlier today. And it's a very, very powerful piece. And Helen has written a very powerful poem to complement this piece. And you can see from both the expression on the face, you can see with the arms again, it's almost as if she's in flight. And this idea of the temple has become part of her limbs, but it also is holding her up, and she's coming out of it. And the words that she's used, Helen has created almost images in her own heads in terms of the words that she's used about cleaning this house and, being the architect of a future. And this idea of there would be no more shadows, there would be no more dark shadows in this house. It really is, I suppose, a proclamation and an intention of freedom and liberation and taking flight. And birds feature quite a lot in her work. And this piece here, again, part of the Temple series, and it's called Connections. And it's again a lovely tribute to the church that she and her husband Paul were married in, a relevance from the community that she's from and the families as well. The reference to Feather on Sea, and you can actually see as well underneath the church this reference to the village and where she lives, and the lighthouse at Hook Head. I can't help but think of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz and clicking the red heels and going back home. But there's a beautiful serenity in her expression, the reference to feathers, and inside there is a gorgeous golden tree, and she has replicated the exact wallpaper that is inside the church that exists today. I'm curious to know more about the birds and if there's a significance in the number of these as well. And then this is the final one that I want to show you here today, and it's called Temple 7, The Strawberry Thief. I love it because of its scale, and I know that over the years I've been working with Helen, we've been encouraging her to look at work on a much bigger scale, but that has huge implications for artists in terms of the materials that they use, the costs of production and the investment in time. This piece, like many of Helen's work, has been exhibited in the Royal Ulster Academy. It was exhibited in the 141st Royal Ulster Academy exhibition up in the Ulster Museum in Belfast. It's the largest piece she's done to date, and it is a reference to William Morris's The Strawberry Thief, the design he did for wallpaper. And again, what she's doing is using it as a proclamation, an endorsement of the importance of women's rights and the importance of holding your ground. The stance remains the same, but the expression has changed. Again, the colours that she's chosen have been very, very deliberate. This reference to a regal existence. The strawberries, again, a reference to fertility, a reference to creativity, a reference to our talents and gifts. And the strawberry thieves can be anything from our colleagues, our friends, our enemies, our lovers, anyone who chooses to try and steal those gifts. And I suppose really what she's asking us to do is to celebrate and respect not only our own talents, but those of each other's, protect them. And again, it's a reference to, particularly when human rights of women are being undermined in the States and further afield, that we really have to hold our ground. And I just think it's a beautiful celebration of an artist who has travelled a huge amount of emotional ground as well as artistically and culturally to create work that is truly unique. And we're delighted with the fact that we've introduced this as a backdrop for this piece of work, and it really complements it. I do believe Helen's work is very exceptional. Her work is very unique. She's a very gifted and talented artist, as well as an art and design educationalist. And now more recently, particularly having come through the illustrations and the drawing, as well as the writing in her lockdown diaries, what she has produced is really something quite phenomenal. And her poems are a testament to an artist who both in words and in images can really celebrate life in all its shades, both the darkness and the light. Also, as part of the exhibition, we've been doing a series of tours and talks. Unfortunately, Helen lives in Wexford, so it's been quite difficult. So I've been facilitating the tours and the talks, but we do have, as part of the exhibition, an interview that we did together when the exhibition first was exhibited in Flowerfield in Portstewart. So it was a lovely conversation between Helen and myself and Professor Harry McMahon and Fran Herfrich, reflecting on what her work means, the impact of creating the work, and I suppose for an artist who has, I suppose, come home to herself and who is very, very happy in her own skin. So as part of the exhibition, Helen has also included 3 paintings, and they're part of the COVID Queen series. And again, they have, I suppose, been opportunities for her to show her talent as a visual artist in her painting and drawing skills as well. The Lockdown Diary has demonstrated her wit and her humour, and there's almost a graphic design quality in the Lockdown Diary. But these pieces, I think, are beautiful. There's 3 of these that are represented in the exhibition, and as I said, all of the work is for sale. And I suppose really as an exhibition, it's a very unique experience, because what we've found is that there have been visitors from all ages and stages, school children, adults, but also artists, educators, musicians, singer-songwriters and poets as well. And we have a group of poets coming from Enniskillen and from Anna Writers who are going to come up and look at the work and respond again to the pieces as well, because artists feed off each other. I know as an artist myself that it is really important to express yourself as an artist, but also to experience artists and other art forms as well. And that co-design and co-collaboration is really important. And I think I as an artist and as a curator have learned a lot in that co-creation and collaboration as well. So without doubt, Helen continues to make excellent work. She's working currently on a number of other commissions for upcoming exhibitions, both regional and international. And this solo exhibition, though, was a huge body of work that represents the talent of an artist who continues to go from strength to strength. We were both committed that we wanted to give a very loud and clear message here about celebrating creativity and celebrating, I suppose, the whole idea of self-expression, and it comes in many different forms. Both of us as artists are inspired by what we read, music we listen to, as well as life experiences. And I think without doubt, one of the things that I have grown to become, particularly during lockdown, is the importance of our own creativity and our own self-expression, and to make no apologies for it. And I think when you are your authentic self, I think there's growth and there's healing and there's hope for everyone. And I think the arts, and I've always believed this, have a huge role to play in all our futures. I think we need to look differently at how we educate our young people. I think we need to look at how we support and develop not just our young people but our older people as well. And I think those that have a life without art, I think it is incomplete. So this exhibition is a very uplifting one. It celebrates life in so many different ways. And I suppose the lockdown diary brought a brand new dimension in terms of the creativity and self-expression. The words that we used, the compassion that were authentic coming from Helen in her own context. And I think then the confidence that we all get when we are encouraged and praised. And also the importance of the written and spoken word. I think Helen's poems have become all the more stronger because of her experience in writing her diary. And also how the sources for all our creativity can come from the very ordinary, extraordinary experiences in life. I have so many favourites. I love the Tribe because of the connection. I come from a rural County Armagh originally, but live now in Fermanagh. And that sense of family and connection with the land is very, very important. My parents are no longer with me. I'm the eldest of 7. But I'm very, very connected to the land and to that family connection. But I'm also very proud of standing beside this piece, The Strawberry Thief. We used to grow strawberries. My father had a market gardening business, and it reminds me of a child standing with my grandfather selling strawberries at the side of the road, and how important it was that we were able to sell them. And it's just the symbolism about, at whatever age or stage you are in life, the importance of, first of all, believing you have gifts, believing you have talents, and celebrating those.
That made me wish you would smile. Envy is a curious thing, and sometimes I'm just trapped inside.